Welcome to the Growth League podcast, where we interview business owners who have experienced quantum leap growth in their business. In each episode, we're going to dive deep into our guests' firsthand experience about what it was like 90 days before and 90 days after that point when their business started experiencing massive growth. Welcome to the Growth League podcast, Amanda.
Hello.
My guest is Amanda Hamilton, and if you don't mind, Amanda, I'm going to pump your tires a little bit by giving folks a preview of who you are and who Amanda Hamilton Interior Design is.
None of it's true. None of it's true.
None of it's true. That's right. You didn't write it. You didn't write it. You just signed off on it. That's right. Amanda Hamilton, celebrated for her tenacious and vibrant persona. It's true. Amanda Hamilton's bold and unconventional approach to design and business has made her one of the most sought-after interior designers in Western Canada. With over a decade of experience, she has earned a diverse and extensive portfolio, including custom residential homes, multi-family developments, restaurants, office, and retail design. The award-winning boutique studio of Amanda Hamilton Interior Design holds an intentionally diverse portfolio in both the residential and commercial markets across Western Canada. Projects range from custom homes, multi-family developments and renovations, to hospitality, retail, health and wellness, and office design. And you're designing your own new office, I'd imagine.
My God, yes.
How do you design your own, like when you're designing something for somebody else? You know, you've done a traditional discovery, you've come to learn what their likes and dislikes are, and you kind of have a template to work off of. But when you got stuff rattling around in your own head and it's never quite good, how do you do that? How's that coming?
That's actually a really tough question. I do get asked that. I think it's that whole saying of like, you know, the shoemaker's son has no shoes. So like you'll go over to an architect's house and their house is never finished. And, you know, as designers, we want beautiful spaces around us, but we see so much. And so I wouldn't say I have just like one style. And so the challenge, of course, when you're designing for yourself, is sometimes I've joked around. I'm like, I just wish another designer could design my space for me, because trying to make a decision for a client, easy. I can immediately be like, I know exactly what that client wants and needs, but for your own space, it's nearly impossible. So, you know, how I did it is I honestly dug into some of the past travels I had done, and I was really inspired by spaces that just made me feel good. So instead of designing our office to, you know, speak to our clients or speak to other designers, it was super personal. It was just, it's a space that I feel like I will feel good in. And, you know, you get to a certain point in your career where you're like, I deserve to give myself something back, right?
Oh yeah.
So I didn't take a corner office. I didn't take windows, but I was like, I'm going to take this space and make it feel like home for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so hopefully my team loves it. They're super stoked. Everybody is like, we need to get into the studio right now.
Yeah. There's something about going into a new office, right? It's almost like a rebirth. It's an opportunity to sort of reinvent who you are a little bit, right? I mean, it's the space is who we are. And, you know, as that becomes home and becomes comfortable for your team members, I think there's some magic that happens. We're sort of experiencing that same thing with our space. So that's awesome. Hey, listen, I'm curious, and our listeners are curious on the origin story of Amanda Hamilton Interior Design. I know that, you know, you started off in probably your apartment there. Bring us back.
Yeah. So I guess I need to mention a little bit about, you know, being a kid. I call myself sort of an accidental entrepreneur, but when I reflect on my life as a child, you know, there was a lot of entrepreneurial pursuits that I had. I started a library inside my grandparents' basement. You know, of course, I had the proverbial sort of lemonade stand where I didn't have any lemonade, so I sold water. Super successful, as I'm sure you can imagine. You know, so there were those opportunities, but I really was never set out to be an entrepreneur. It was actually 2009, in the middle of the recession in Calgary, and I was moonlighting on the side, which I wasn't actually allowed to be doing. And my boss sort of found out and said, you know, you have to choose. And I said, no, I'll stay with you guys. But then that only lasted for a couple months, and I started getting approached on the side. I was designing like 5,000 square foot restaurants, like on the side, while working a full-time job, while also working at a restaurant 3 days a week. So
Wow.
I was hustling before hustling was a buzzword.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's sort of how I got my start. I middle of the recession, no savings, no business experience, launched my own company, and really happy to say that I didn't poach any clients from my previous employer. These were all relationships I had sort of built on the side, and it just sort of grew very organically from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you know what? Going back to how we started this off asking about the headphones, I can hear you perfectly. But I think I could hear you just a little bit better if you had them on. And we're probably not going to do too much of the video stuff. So this is all for audio.
Oh, you want to check this out?
So if you, oh, look at that.
I had to get these for another podcast I did, but there was no video. So it was like, it doesn't matter that they look stupid.
I always feel like I'm on some call center team and I'm just hammering phone calls out all day.
Okay, so can you hear me through here now? I don't even know if this is
I can. In the bottom left corner of your Zoom, you can do, I think you probably know.
Built-in Logitech USB headset.
That's it.
How
Perfect.
about now? Yeah?
Way better.
Okay. I guess I can just let this hang. Hey?
Yep.
Maybe I'll just pin this quickly to.
It's quite the headset. Oh, now I can't hear you. Go to that same arrow and just make sure that the microphone and the speaker are the same. Not yet. Sometimes when you, oh yeah, I hear you.
How about now?
Perfect.
Okay. Alrighty.
We've done it.
I feel like it's about to take off.
Yeah, this is, hold on to your seats, everybody.
Hold on to your seats. I have no training as a pilot, but we're about to take off.
That's right. You'll notice the exits are illuminated by on your left and on your right. Yeah, that's right. If we do crash, fix yourself before you fix someone else. Okay.
Say your last prayers if you're a religious person.
That's right.
The rest of us will just hold on tight.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you started it in your home. I mean, you there was this transition point, right? It's when you left your sort of 9 to 5. You went out on your own. Scary. Started small. What was? Tell me about client number 1, because it's always client number 1, right?
That's a spicy topic.
Ooh. Or 2.
No. It's actually good. And you're right. We totally started in like an 8 by 10 bedroom in a house I was trying to renovate. And there were staff working out of there. I've worked from home many times. There's one time when there was 5 or 6 of us working out of a 2-bedroom condo. It's been chaos. So luckily now I'm like, 2,000 square feet for an office. But first client, so good. He was really, I think, a big driver of starting a company. He was the one that really pushed me. Of course, he was an entrepreneur himself and owned several restaurants. And that's really where I got my start. I sort of, came into the Calgary, market as a designer, as like the restaurant designer. So I had worked in the restaurant industry for 7 years. I understood them intimately. I got the lingo. I was able to have conversations with clients that way. And that's really how I kind of had my big break. And this client also ended up being a bit of a mentor for me. He taught me a lot about business and life, and I learned so many lessons from him. But unfortunately, probably after about working together for 5 years, it ended on a bit of a sour note, one that I really was out of my control. But I also still believe that people come into your life for a season, a reason, right? And so I'm still actually so grateful for that relationship. Of course, I wish it wouldn't have ended that way, but again, it was sort of out of my control.
So this person will not be named. Sorry, listeners.
Oh, and this person's great. Like, I mean, there was even circumstances that were out of his control. I think that just, ultimately just dissolved the relationship. And I think that happens in our lifetime. It happens with family members, it happens with friends, and you just start to butt heads and things just don't work anymore. And I think, honestly, looking back, both of our lives are probably healthier not having each other in each other's lives. But
hey,
incredible mentor.
We grow, we change, our businesses grow, they change, and sounds like there's a lot of appreciation there. So that's awesome.
For sure.
So it's the Growth League podcast. It's all about reflecting back on, and it's never a point, but can you do your best to describe what was the tipping point for you when it went from maybe a hobby or a side project or maybe a job to this is a business that is ready to scale. It is scaling. Bring me back to that moment. What was the tipping point, and how did you define scale? Was it employee count? Was it client count? Was it top line?
I think there's a few really important moments where there was some pretty impactful things that happened in the business where I can remember. So it was always a passion of mine. Like it was never just like a side hustle. Once I made that leap, I was all in. It's never been a job. It's really a mission. Like I feel pretty blessed to wake up every morning. I know it sounds cliche, but to really love what I do. I don't think that everybody has that. And so, I fell into all the same trappings that you hear about all the time with every other entrepreneur. Cash flow was a major issue for us. I wasn't managing my numbers properly. I didn't even know how to. It wasn't even something that I thought about. It just, by luck, it's just like we just kept having revenue. I've never advertised for my company. We just have always had jobs coming in, and still to this day I've never advertised. And but the problem is we grew really fast. I think the highest number of employees that I had probably at about 5 or 6 years in was probably about 8 or 9 people. And I just wasn't running the company properly. I lost sight on needing to be actively involved every single day. And clients started to suffer, our numbers started to suffer, my team started to suffer. And I ultimately made the decision to basically do massive layoffs and start from scratch. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the catalyst, or that was the tipping point of me really understanding that, like, I can't just rest on the fact that, like, we've always had great jobs and we always have projects and the business is just going to come. Because, I've been through what I call like 3.5 recessions, the pandemic being part of that. And yeah, exactly. And, you cannot take your eye off of your business. And so when I rebuilt from 3 people, I started getting more systems in place, more protocols. I was showing up, more as a mentor and a leader versus a boss. So I really changed my mindset of instead of a top-down sort of management style, more bottom up. And I think that tipping point for me, of course there's a revenue marker. Like, once you get over like 1 million, you're like, whoa. And then also once you hit that sort of, I think it was that 7 or 8 year mark where you're like, oh, like we've really started to like resolve some of these issues. We understand how the business, I think people think that it's like a 3 to 5 year thing. Like if you made it to 3 years or 5 years, you're going to make it. Nope. I honestly think that number is like more like 7 or 8 years where you start to be like, this thing is like a machine and it's, it's chugging along. And so, I've been running this company now for 13 years, but formally incorporated for 11. And so it's been a while. Yeah. Not to say things are perfect, for sure. There's always stuff to work on.
Hey, we're our worst critics, aren't we?
Oh, yes.
Talk about systems and processes. That's a big point. Can you give one example of a system or process in the 6 months leading up, or the 9 months leading up to this, quote unquote tipping point, that was a helpful catalyst to creating that change or that growth?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that we've done in our studio is really made it very clear to the rest of the team about what the scope of work is, how many hours are attributed to each task, what those tasks are, and providing, whether you want to call them white papers or checklists or whatever it is. It's really like having very clear expectations. And so we really started integrating more technology. As an example, we use a program called Team Gantt, which, Gantt charts work really well for my industry. industry, construction, interior design, anywhere where there's like a lot of project management and some major milestones that need to be met. And I'm sure in your industry, very similar, right? Everything's project based. And so I think that technology really helped to keep the team accountable, but also provide clarity, right? Hearing over and over again, like I can't really get upset with my team about going over on the hours if they didn't have any idea what the hours were to begin with.
Yeah.
So I think that's been a really, really big one for us. And then very recent, well, not very recently, probably in the last 2 or 3 years, we've been really focused on what client onboarding looks like, you know, in terms of what that experience is. How quickly does a client get a phone call back? You know, how soon after do we, you know, schedule their first initial meeting and then their design discovery meeting? And now I would say launching into 2021, I'm really interested in employee onboarding, right? So really just going, giving back to the team. So I think all of those things have had a hand in our continued growth through recessions. Like we have continued to grow despite every year, year after year, we've grown.
What about this idea of especially during COVID, of nesting? Is that applicable? And people are becoming more interested in, or less interested in, staring at the same four walls every day? Has business kind of seen any uptick because of this idea that, hey, we got to be home, let's make it a special place?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's been so interesting through COVID is no one would have had any idea what industries got completely thrashed and other ones would have grown. I think, you know, somebody would have said, well, you're kind of a luxury service, like, you know, things are going to be tough. No, we stayed steady. I mean, we definitely dipped. We're down a little bit from last year, but nothing that I would be worried about that couldn't just be attributed to a normal market flexing and but there is more people at home right now. So we are definitely getting more projects where people are in their home looking around. They're doing small renovation projects. But the commercial market is still busy as well. You know, developers are still moving on things. You can get land for cheaper right now. There's more opportunities. I think, you know, we've been able to some extent, I'm like knock on wood, but you know, recession proof our business because we have a super diverse portfolio. We work in different markets. And so when one area is down, another one's up, vice versa, you know, and that allows us to stay quite steady.
What's your ideal, whether it's residential or commercial, what are some of the properties of the ideal client for you? You talked about client onboarding, and it makes it so much easier when they are the right fit for you. Who's a perfect fit for Amanda Hamilton?
I think we all go through this as business, you know, owners, is like, we think we have this ideal client to start, and then we have some experiences. You know, initially I really wanted to service a luxury market. I wanted to be known for higher end luxury interior design. But as I've worked through it, you know, we kind of have a motto now that, you know, we're the interior design studio that does cool projects with stylish people.
Cool.
Right. And behind that, the story is basically, I wanted to be able to hit multiple price points and work with multiple different types of personalities, because I would meet these people and I'd be like, I want to work with you, but they didn't fit this like niche of being a luxury client. So now I'm interested in people who are grounded, they're interested, they're present, you know, they're thoughtful about it. And most importantly, that they understand they need interior design. You know, I'm far past the point of having to convince a client to spend money on our services. Like somebody said this to me recently, and I wish I could remember who it was, but it is so good and it has resonated with me, is if your client is haggling you and they don't want you to make money, they're not the right fit for you. Your client should want your business to thrive.
Yeah.
Right. And so our ideal clients are people that are like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have a sense of like what I like, but I know you, I trust you, and I want you to do this for me. And now that I've been doing this for so long, luckily most of our clients are like, just do your thing, you know, whereas when you first start a company, your clients are a little bit more like, well, you don't have a very big portfolio, and they're way more hands-on. And the best projects are the ones where we are allowed to sort of take a vision, explore it and execute it, a little bit more on our side than say
Yeah.
the client side. Yeah.
When you have what you just explained, rooted into your business in terms of this abundance mentality and not haggling over prices and being sure about your process and what you're offering in terms of value, that's one of the critical components of growth. And
Yeah.
I think that's obviously been leveraged in your case. So you live downtown. Where do you?
Can you hear you can hear the buses in the background?
That's excellent ambient.
Yeah.
Where's your local spot? Like, where do you go grab a cup of coffee?
Well, I hate coffee, so let's start there.
Okay. Beer. I think you're a
Oh,
vodka.
no, I'm a wine and cocktail kind of gal.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I mean, I love Cardinal because it's like right in my hood, and Graham, the owner there, is just so great. They take such good care of me. I have to say, like, I'm pretty spoiled when I go to restaurants. Like, I mean, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but most of the service staff know me by name because I've worked in the restaurant industry. I have, as somebody in the service industry, I've done lots of restaurants, and so, I love that sense of that like Cheers mentality where everybody knows your name. Like it's just nice to be out in a space where and you're always glad you
and
came.
they would take like 3-4 steps down into the bar.
Yeah,
it's like kind of underground.
Yeah, I love that. So Cardinal's one. I mean, for cocktails, of course, I love going to Proof. A1 Bodega has been a favorite lately. Pigeonhole just reopened up with their 2.0 version, and last time I went there, they brought me a green shooter and a frozen mini boot. So that's a way to start the evening.
Excellent.
But yeah, anywhere where I feel comfortable sitting for a while. I often have my laptop with me when I'm in a restaurant and frequently alone. So you just want to feel good.
Yeah. So if you could imagine, you're kind of flying up above the ground and you see Amanda sitting at one of her favorite spots 7 years ago. And she's going to be there. She's going to be there for a while because she likes to sit and kind of work on her stuff, but nobody's talking to her. And you go up to her and it's two Amandas in this situation. And you're going to say, hey, I got 10 minutes with you. I have to tell you like 2 or 3 things. What would you tell yourself to maybe make growth happen sooner or less painful?
Yeah.
What are you telling 7 years ago, Amanda, sitting there by herself?
This question almost gives me anxiety. Like I feel butterflies in my stomach. Honestly, one of the best things, and I don't know if you've done this, that I have ever done for my business is I implemented the standards from Profit First. Right. I would say that to any year 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 entrepreneur. It completely eradicated cash flow issues. It basically, takes the old school jar model and you put a certain percentage in here and a certain percentage in here. It becomes very clear. And I think because there was a lot of money that flows through what is a relatively small boutique studio, because we do big numbers when it comes to our furniture sales. That's a lot to manage. That's a lot to manage, to not have somebody full-time just managing your bank account, which at this point I have that person, which is amazing. Oh my gosh, that's the other thing I would recommend. The second you can get a controller and just like release control of your bank account, that was the best thing that I've ever done. She manages everything. And, that's the advice I would give. I would say, keep an eye on your numbers. As a creative person, it's often not the first thing that we would jump to or the natural thing. I wouldn't say it's always the most exciting thing, but I would have saved myself a lot of pain had I better managed my money earlier on. Right. And I think I would have been more profitable and more savvy. But these are lessons that we learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You almost have to.
Well, that's the thing. You kind of have to, like, I had to go through being in a position where at one point very early on, I had to cash out my RRSPs so I could make payroll. Yeah. I was always the last person at the table getting the scraps, whereas now I've been able to put myself in a position where I actually, even though I never used to believe it, I do pay myself first. Yeah. But that doesn't mean anything else suffers. Right. Yeah. Yeah. We leverage Profit First a lot here at Hook and Ladder. And even at home, my wife's like, why do we have an NMAX bank account? It's like, because
We need different jars for different things, and we got to take care of that first.
Exactly.
That's cool. So,
my accountant hates it. I don't know if your accountant hates it, but
yeah,
they're like, you literally have, and I have 3 businesses. So they're like, you literally have like 25 bank accounts and then credit cards with each of them. And I'm like, I don't care. I know it's unorthodox. It's way better. I can look in and see exactly how much money's in my profit account versus my holding account versus my payroll account, tax account. It's the best.
And as long as you don't have like more than 10 transactions, you can as many accounts as you want. They'll give them away.
I mean, I probably do in some of those accounts for sure, but I would rather pay more. Let me put it this way. I'd rather pay more in bank charges to know that my finances are good.
Do you have like a liquor, a bar fund?
Yeah, exactly. Could you imagine? There's a lot of there are a lot of restaurant charges on my credit card. That's for sure.
Excellent. Write them off.
Yeah.
So if business growth was sort of this delicious meal, you mentioned one of the key ingredients that need to go into that, cash management, profit first principles. What else are some of the fundamentals that have to be in place in order to experience not iterative growth, but next level growth?
Yeah. I love this question because I love to cook, and it to me reminds me of like the 3 basic ingredients that you basically start off like every single dish.
Brown sugar. No.
Okay. Your house looks a little different than my house. Yours sounds more delicious, but it's like high quality extra virgin olive oil, onions, garlic, right? And right, the fundamentals. And so again, like that, going back to that question, like what are those things? Like I think early on setting up systems and procedures to make things really clear for your team. That's number one. Those are things that it took years for me to kind of establish. And I would even say we're still establishing them. Something comes up and you're like, shoot, we need a protocol for if this happens again. Something happened yesterday where I'm like, Kate, let's address this because I know it's going to happen again. Right. So I think that's definitely one of them. Of course, the sort of your numbers, having an eye on your numbers. And I think the really big thing that has made our company successful is our company culture. I feel it feels pretty special to have a team who regularly tells me that they love coming to work. They love what they do. They care so much about our clients, even to a fault sometimes. Yeah. Being able to have that kind of environment means that those people have your back. So when I have to come to them and say, this needs to get done, or we need to pull some extra weight here, or I need this last minute favor, they're willing to do it because they love what they do and love working in the studio.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're doing some cool stuff. I think Calgary has an unbelievable sort of wealth of strong women, female entrepreneurs, business leaders. And I think you just recently kind of put together a little get together where you sort of share the floor and tell me about this new thing you're doing.
Yeah, I was inspired by the Entrepreneurs Organization, which I'm a member of, and I have a forum group where we meet on a monthly basis, and it's an accountability group, right? And it's a platform for you to share with other entrepreneurs. I think, it can be a lonely world, and if your friends are not in that world, they just don't necessarily always share the same things that keep them up at night that we do. And so this women's entrepreneurship group was sort of born out of COVID. There was a number of women that we were sharing kind of like on a group text thread, and we just really supported each other during COVID. We, had a few Zoom calls. We were texting each other, sharing information like, okay, what are the new things that have come out with the government? And I just saw that there was just such a great opportunity to grow that. There were women that I was like, I want you to be there. Like, I want you to be a part of this community. And so there's 10 of us. And what is sort of fun is I didn't want to make also more work for myself. So it's like each woman hosts the meeting each month in the way that she wants to do it, in the way that she wants to express herself or the information she shares. But it just basically becomes a platform for us to develop better female friendships and also support each other as female entrepreneurs. It can be difficult sometimes, being a woman in this world. And so it's additional support.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing what you're doing. We need, I always joke, we need way more strong female leaders because men are too emotional.
I like how you just said men are too emotional. Yeah, maybe emotional in a different way, like
I know, that's the joke.
emotionally robotic. Is that
Emotionally
the
robotic.
robotically emotional?
We're soft inside, bunch of softies.
I know you are. You know, I think in general, I'm just interested in really championing like leadership and entrepreneurship for women. I mean,
Yeah.
I see it, and I love you, and you are a member as well. And, you know, it's mostly men though,
Right.
you know, and I think it's important for us to encourage other women to feel comfortable to go into these organizations.
Totally.
Yeah.
You talked earlier about shifting gears here a little bit. You talked about you haven't done a lot of traditional marketing. What has been some of the thrust or the rocket fuel behind your growth over the last little bit? Is it just great quality work and word of mouth, or tell me about the engine?
I think honestly, I have to give a lot of credit to our online presence. So I'm a bit of an early adopter. You know, it's like I was on Twitter early, I was on Instagram early, I was on Facebook early. And I think what I learned through the process is that I have a natural strength for strategy and marketing myself. And so it's something that I always had put a lot of focus on. Now, of course, I work with a team who helps me manage that platform. But honestly, a big thing for me was our website. Our website has incredible organic SEO. We don't pay for optimizing that whatsoever. There are just so many articles and stuff pointing to that website and vice versa. I have a huge portfolio on there. We're actually launching a new website in a couple of weeks, which will be fun. I mean, provided I get everything to my web developer before she kills me.
That's the best.
And so I think having an online presence is important. That's where our clients find us. You know, I think a lot has shifted even in the buying process. I mean, people now are buying furniture off of Instagram.
Yeah.
Like they're buying a sofa off of Instagram. They're not even going to the store. They're not sitting on it anymore. So the whole industry for interior design has changed dramatically. And so I think having a really solid online presence obviously gives you legitimacy, but it allows people to explore your work and make a decision before they even call you.
Right.
A lot of our clients call us and like they're not shopping us.
Really?
They're coming directly to us. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
and I would say
amazing.
most of our clients are actually not referral. They're either repeat customers we've done work for in the past, or they're people who have found us online and then have heard our name in several other areas, right? So they'll see a magazine article, or then they'll talk to a friend. So they've heard our name 3 to 5 times before they've come to us, and it helps them solidify that, yes, this is the person I want to work with.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the dream when you can tap into that organic train and it's moving for you.
Yeah.
That's the dream.
I mean, sometimes I'm like, what it would look like if we did advertise, like, could we have even more explosive growth? But I think what's neat is when people find you, they've already made that decision. You're not fighting to get their business. You're not trying to justify yourself. They're already like committed to hiring somebody.
Totally. There's a massive difference between, hi, so-and-so, I'm Amanda Hamilton. I do this, this, and this, versus, hi, how can I help you?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. There's intent behind the other.
Yeah.
So, I know that you're not someone to kind of just stop and be complacent. What is the next mountain for you guys that you're going to be climbing? What are the aspirations for? I love it how people just think magically when 2021 comes, everything is going to be different. But
we thought that about 2020, and look what 2020 did to us. 2020 was like taught us a lesson.
That's right. A good lesson. It's been a great year, actually. I mean, besides the health stuff and that scariness, but anyways, aspirations for the future. What's the next thing you guys are climbing? You got an office, you got a website.
Yeah, a great question. And, you were talking about the fact that having a new office space really allows us to kind of have a bit of a fresh start. And for us, it's also a bit of a marketing move, right? We didn't want to lose jobs because people weren't in love with our office space. We had a very sort of like downtown boutique style office space with 4 character building. This takes us to the next level. But now we're able to also launch some initiatives that we've had to shelf for a long time. So we're relaunching our speaker series under the new moniker of Hard Bar Fridays. Nice. And it's really going to be focused around entrepreneurs, bringing them together in a small group setting. I'm also launching a podcast called After Hours, and we're also doing a in-office initiative called Open Studio, kind of taking a cue off of open source learning.
Yeah.
So it's like open source studio, and people from the general public, students, people who just love design can come in and use our design library, access our finishes and materials, and just like use our space. So we're opening that up one day a week for a period of time. And I'm also writing a book right now. So that's it seems like a really great time to just smash out a book. Deadline is January 11th. So you guys can all hold me accountable, but
that's amazing.
That's personally like where my big focus is right now is just making sure I'm committing to that. But yeah, life is full. I try not to use the word busy, and it's amazing. And like you said, so many incredible lessons this year. I don't know that I would change it. I mean, I've had some really hard learnings and have also had some really beautiful experiences through all this.
Yeah. Well, some of the hard, I mean, you are married to a man that is in an industry that is very interesting during COVID.
Yes.
I'm glad you guys were there for each other to get through that crazy.
Yeah, we did. We joke that we're like, we might be the only people that lost weight during COVID because, you know, we were doing these like online workouts every single day, sometimes twice a day, you know, plus you're trying to get your own workouts in. And so, yeah, I came out of it being like, I'm in good shape.
That's right. That's amazing. I was in the basement just grinding it out with paint buckets and my baby.
It's perfect. It's perfect. It's like, I think, you know, what's cool is I think a lot of people have established more of a fitness routine now, and it becomes something that they look forward to every day. I know that's what it was like for me when you're sitting at home all day long. Like you look forward to being like, okay, at 4 p.m., I'm having my daily workout.
Yeah.
And it was great. I loved it.
Yeah. Atomic Habits.
Exactly. Great book.
Unbelievable. So this is my last question. And I think that businesses that achieve growth and scale often they have to have a great leader, right? And I think that great leaders typically have great, or at least very consistent morning routines. So I want to know about Amanda's, maybe it's a morning, you sound like a night person, but
I used to be, not anymore.
What's the routine that you hold yourself to?
I love this question, and I love talking about habits and rituals. I dug into that a lot in 2019, read a lot of books on it. And I put this stuff right in my calendar. I'm a big believer that if it's not in your calendar, you're not going to do it. Like it needs to just be in there. So I like to rise early. Like it depends on the time of year and what's going on in my life, but that could be 5 a.m. or it could be 6 a.m. And still working on establishing a consistent meditation habit, but like getting up and meditating anywhere from honestly 10 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll actually go to a meditation class, getting a workout in, and then taking the time to have breakfast. I think that's the one thing I laugh about. Like there's such a trend for intermittent fasting, and I'm like,
don't eat till noon, and you're like crawling through.
I'm like, well, and not only that, but I'm like, entrepreneurs have been doing intermittent fasting since the very beginning. Like, I mean, we skip over all the things that are important, right? And so I think that's important. I schedule in, you know, I have an evening ritual as well. So, 30 minutes of reading. I like to do some stretching, like having really good sleep hygiene and preparing yourself for sleep, I think is super important. I'm not perfect at it. I'm definitely still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
You know, some nights you're out later and, you know, you want to have a sleep in. I think so much of it is like listening to your body.
Yeah.
But honestly, optimizing my day, I'm kind of a bit of a biohacker, like figuring out how to get the most out of my day is super important and kind of interesting.
It totally is.
Yeah.
So when you fall off, you're just kind of the one who flush it. Let's, next day type thing. Cause I think that's the big challenge, right? For people.
Next day. Cause everybody does I have a girlfriend who said this to me the other day. She's like, I'm going to quit smoking on October 31st. And I fully called her. I was like, why October 31st? And she's like, well, it's after Halloween. I'm like, you're in your late 30s. Like
my costume requires cigarettes.
Like, I was basically told her, I was like, get a grip. And I think we all do this naturally as human beings. We're really hard on ourselves and we go, okay, well, I'm going to start January 1st. And then January 1st blows by and then you're like, well, I'll start after my birthday in April. And it's like, you just create these excuses for yourself and you're so hard as opposed to just being like, I didn't work out yesterday, but I'm going to work out today.
Yeah.
Like, and so I think that's I'm glad you brought that up. It's such a valuable lesson. You just have to give yourself a little bit of grace to be like, yesterday wasn't so great. I ate like a human trash can, But today I have an opportunity to eat well. And I think it's about the balance on all of that stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, with that,
With
hey,
that,
listen, Amanda, you're a big leader in this city. That's why the city is so exciting to have entrepreneurs and business
aw,
leaders like you. You
thank
inspire
you.
a lot of people, men, women, and now students potentially, with your space. What a cool initiative that is. And so, thank you. I'm very grateful. You're actually episode number 2
Oh,
on the Growth League podcast. So, thank you. I really appreciate it, and I think everyone's just going to love keeping in touch. Where do we follow you? Where do we? I think it's at AHID.
yeah, at AHID Studio, and obviously at amandahamiltondesign.com. You can find us there, or you can literally just Google Amanda Hamilton and 9 million
SEO.
sites and SEO. I know sometimes I'm like, it would be nice to maybe just have some like anonymity now, but like it's too late. Like the internet owns me.
Yeah.
But it makes it easy for people to find you. So
Hey, that's helpful when you're trying to grow.
I created a monster.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And
This is great.
keep going.
Thank you.
See you, Amanda.
See ya.